Hey boys and girls, Spidey's back with a different style of race report for the new Endurance series. I'm going to give you some race details, followed by a race recap of the field, then onto the points table to see what teams scored big and which ones will be pushing hard for the next round to claw back some missed points. Starting with the race details. The first round of the Raceonoz Team Endurance Championship sees us at the foothills of Mount Fuji in Japan at the Fuji Speedway. This is a multi-class series, so we've got LMP2s and GTEs sharing the track for 80 minutes. Full damage is on, so it's important to keep the car off the walls and pick the best times to chance an overtake or pressure the guy in front to make a mistake and capitalise on it. Tuning is open and the weather settings are based off the local weather report in Sydney, Australia for the day of the race. So if Sydney records any rain for the day, then the race settings are changed to incorporate this. This is a team's championship series, so individuals will only score points for their team and not themselves. All points are gathered into the team score, and the team with the highest points are crowned champions and not a single driver. 10 points are awarded for drivers turning up to the race event, with the addition of the points earned based off their finishing position. And we're on to the race reports from the drivers. Familiar GTR in the green Marek LMP2 for Team Green. Familiar qualified in P3, but due to a poor start had dropped to P5 by turn 2. He quickly managed to jump back into P4 as the LMP2 of Spidey ran wide into the long right-hander. In the early stages of the race, you could throw a blanket over TB Williams, Familiar and Spidey. The other cars were faster through the twisty stuff, but you could see the Marek had a significant speed advantage down the straights. This essentially eliminated any turn 1 overtake for the other cars around Familiar. He was on a one-stop strategy and pitted with about 40 minutes to go for fresh soft tyres and 60 litres of fuel. After the pit stops, Familiar was in P3, but in the dying minutes of the race, second place Spidey had to stop for a splash and dash, elevating Familiar up to the second step on the podium where he would finish out. After the race, Familiar commented that he was stoked with the result, even though he didn't have the raw pace but was happy with his consistent race pace. He also noted that the importance of no spins and no aero damage meant he spent minimal time in the pits. V8 Power 383 in the blue and white Ford GTE for Team Triple B Racing. V8 Power qualified P2 in class and started well until he spun on lap 1, luckily not hitting anything, but this put him right at the back of the field. However, a few drivers ahead couldn't keep all four wheels on the tarmac, which saw him gain a few positions and begin to chase down the Juzzy. Once V8 Power got past Juzzy for P1 in class, Juzzy pitted at the halfway point, allowing V8 Power to hold on to P1 until he pitted with about 20 minutes to go. V8 Power pitted for new tyres and his mechanics overfilled his fuel, which dropped him back about 6 seconds behind Juzzy and Stimson Glenn. V8 Power managed to catch up to Stimson Glenn, putting enough pressure on him to cause a spin, but this resulted in V8 Power unable to avoid him, and unfortunately he picked up some damage, and this in turn cost him a few tenths per lap, bringing it home in P2 for class. Benny 1169 in the Ligier Honda LMP2 for Team Triple B Racing. Benny qualified P2 in class and stayed in this position for the first part of the race, chasing down its Benny Racer in P1. The two Bennies left the rest of the field with quite a gap back to P3. Benny was only 2.5 seconds behind P1 when he touched a bit of grass which speared him violently into the right hand side of a barrier, smashing his front end. The damage was major, but he brought the car back to the pits for repair. From here on, it seemed like damage limitation, as his qualifying pace was outstanding, but he wouldn't get the finishing position he would have liked. He did manage the fastest lap of the race and a solid P4 position. After the race, Benny commented it was a great competition to be a part of and he's already looking forward to the next race. TB Williams in the blue Ligier Honda LMP2 again for Team Triple B Racing. TB qualified P4 in class and managed a lap 1 turn 1 overtake on P3 sitter Familiar. TB settled into third position behind his teammate Benny 1169 and early on made a gap to Familiar and Spidey, only for that to disappear as they both found their way past after an interesting battle for the remaining spot on the podium. Then, the unthinkable happened. TB Williams got disconnected at the same time as another driver. In sim racing, do these type of disconnects equate to real-life engine or gearbox issues that would require retiring the car? Let me know in the comments below. It's Benny Racer in the green Marek LMP2 for Team Green. A slightly stressful qualifying reported by It's Benny Racer, as he reported it takes about 2 laps for his car to get the tyres up to temperature, and as a result, both flying laps he caught another car, which cost him 0.5 of a second. Luckily for him, the second attempt was good enough and he started the race on pole. The start of the race was smooth sailing as he maintained P1 and immediately got into a groove and started to build a gap. However, he was the lead car and the first to approach any GTEs, and this proved slightly troublesome when he caught a group of them battling for position. Through the overtaking process, It's Been Your Racer sustained aero damage while trying to zigzag between 2 of them. The timing screens showed the damage was costing him 1.5 seconds per lap, and this was allowing Benny 11169 to reduce the gap to P1. Luck prevailed as Benny 111 had a spin, and this meant It's Been Your Racer could continue onto his scheduled pit stop at half race distance. Luckily, the repairs only added a few seconds to the pit stop, and he exited the pits with a 9-second margin back to second place Spidey. From then on, it was a pretty cruisy run home for It's Been Your Racer, taking out the LMP2 class win. Anthbach in the Ford GTE for Team B Racing. Anthbach qualified about where he expected. However, when changing from his quali setup to his race setup, he forgot to change the fuel load from 20 litres to 65 litres. Ant realised this on the formation lap and played it too conservative into turn 1, dropping to last. A few drivers in front of Ant had trouble, giving him a few spots, but he also had a few off-road adventures as he was trying to change his pit strategy on the fly. Ant later commented this was a big learning curve for him, as this was the first full damage, full tuning multi-class event he had ever done. Rossi NSX in the factory colour Porsche GTE for Team FCR. Rossi had an early spin in the race which resulted in damage to his front suspension. This required an unscheduled pit to repair the damage, and due to this, he was lapped by the front runners. From here on, Rossi reported a pretty non-eventful race, finishing P6 in class. Blue Bounty 05 in the Ligier Honda for Team Handbrake. Blue Bounty qualified P6 in class but managed to jump up 1 spot and finish in P5. Blue Bounty reported to have absolutely loved the race and enjoyed having strategy involved and the requirement to make on-the-fly changes as the race progressed. The Juzzy in the red Ford GTE for Team FCR. The Juzzy qualified P4 in class in what was a very close GTE field. Juzzy later commented that his quali pace wasn't up to scratch, but he knew his race pace would be good enough, so he wasn't too fussed about his starting position. The start of the race, Juzzy stayed in P4 until on lap 2, a couple of drivers ahead of him spun, parting the way for Juzzy, and he skipped on through, avoiding any damage. By the 40-minute mark, Juzzy needed to make some adjustments to his strategy before pitting. After exiting the pits, he came across one of the Ferraris, which was a gun in a straight line. Juzzy kept plugging away, and he managed to get by the Ferrari and take the GTE class win. Juzzy later commented it was a bloody good race and the LMP2 guys were really good at passing. Spidey 11 in the Ligier Honda LMP2 for Team FCR. Quali was tough. I was never going to trouble the guys up the front who were in the 138s or low 139s. I started P5, so the plan was to see where I settled in after the first few laps and keep a clean race and my car as damage free as I could. I did have a race strategy of fill the tank to the maximum of 75 litres, but something happened after my quali and I started the race on 48 litres. I was missing 27 litres, but I didn't notice this until a few laps in. An early pit was now required, and to see if I could fuel save the second stint so I didn't need to trundle down the pits for a splash and dash at the end. Lap 1 had me P5 up to P3 briefly in turn 1, but I was cautious and back to P4, then P5 again after running wide just before the long right sweeper. P5 was my spot for the first part of the race as I tried to chase down Familiar in his Marek, but his top speed on the straights kept me behind and looking for a way past somewhere in the corners. The front two of It's Been Your Racer and Benny 11169 skipped off into the distance and a three-way battle began with TB Williams, Familiar and myself. The cars had their different strengths and weaknesses and people were running different tunes, so you had to look for where you were gaining and losing to the car ahead and behind. Things started to spice up around the 22-minute mark as we started to catch some GTE cars. Credit to them, they were racing their own race within their class and we had to navigate our way around them. From my end, this brought on brilliant racing because it was difficult to pinpoint where you would catch them on the lap. On the 27-minute mark, I was running very low on fuel, and the opportunity came for an overtake on Familiar as we passed a GTE car. I was passed, but had to pit the very same lap. I put in the maximum fuel of 75 litres and thankfully didn't need any damage repair, so I was out and back on the hunt, but also trying to see if I could fuel save to the end of the race. After a few laps, the Dash app gave me a negative time difference of 10 minutes of fuel remaining to the time left in the race. I kept it fuel saving for as long as I could, and I saw myself ahead of Benny 11169 and Familiar after their pit stops. Benny 11169 must have stopped for tyres and was catching me. I expected from his quali pace to lose a spot to him by the end of the race. By this point, I was eyeing off a podium, if my fuel could last. A few laps later, and Benny 11169 pitted, and I was running in a clean P2 spot. With about 20 minutes to go, the fuel saving idea was canned as I couldn't save enough fuel and keep Familiar behind me as I was noticing the gap between us was decreasing. So I prepped a new short fuel stop of 11 litres and tried to build as big as a gap as I could to try and offset the late race pit stop. My fuel lasted till the remaining 6-minute mark as I entered the pits with 0.8 of a litre left. While going down the pit lane, Familiar went past. I brought the car home in P3 and a very good result for my team and for myself. The 80 minutes were bloody awesome. Multi-class, full damage, full car tuning, fighting for position early, bumper to bumper, and trying to play the long game with strategy at the end. Definitely looking forward to the next race. And we're on to the points table. The first round is over and the points table is looking like this. Thanks to It's Been Your Racer for the table, we've got team name and members, the car class they are in, their best lap, finishing position, and points contributed to the overall team score. At the top, it's Team FCR on 107 points. All team members showed up, which nets them 40 team points right there. Also, the Juzzy bagged a heap of points for his win in the GTE class. Very close behind is Team Green on 104 points. They got full team points, even though Nige Guns had a disconnect from the race, where he had solid pace. The win in the LMP2 class for It's Been Your Racer keeps them sniffing the rear bumper of first place. Team Triple B Racing is third on 92 points. Another team with a disconnect, but good results keep them in the hunt. Team Handbrake is living up to their name early on with only 44 points. Unfortunately, they had two of their drivers pull out and weren't able to fill in the spots with any reserves, seeing them drop easy team points there. Will these boys be underdogs? It's got to be said, they do have the two recent Project Cars 2 Division 1 champions in their team, being Slambo, the current champ, and Rhino, the outgoing champ from the previous season. I'd say watch this space, they are ones to look out for. If you made it this far into the video and liked the content, hit that like button for me, or tell me in the comments below what parts you didn't like and how I could change it up and improve it for the next race. Speaking of that, the next race will be held at Daytona International Road Course and will again be for an 80-minute race with full damage and tuning on. That's it from me, and I'll see you on the track.
Right side. Nice one, you're clear. One length back. Half length back, what's your line? One length behind. Still there. You're running on fumes. lengths back. One left. Okay, you're clear. 2 lengths behind. Left side. All good, you're clear now. 2 lengths back. One on your left. You're clear. Your pace is good. Keep that up. Keep it up. On your left. Nice. Clear. Release. Go. Great job, great driving. See you on the podium.
Good job, everyone. If you want, save the replay now. It might only get a little bit. But you get what you get if you save it. So just remember, hit the button now, and I won't go back to the lobby for a fair bit. You got no room? I'm saving mine. I'll see how much it gets. I'm firing my pit crew. They're fucking sacked. They fucking gave me half fuel on the start of the race. Yeah. I had my setup for 75 litres. They gave me like 40 something or something. Or I don't know, 40 or 50 or something. Like that. It was short because by lap, I don't know, 5 or 6, I was looking down at fuel and it said 30 something. I'm like, fuck. Yeah. That was some fucking good racing at the early part. Like, familiar TV. Yeah. Fucking hell, man. Uh, 3 and 11. So 11 at the rear. Man, your car on the straight was a fucking jet. No, I was right behind it. You could fit a fucking Vegemite sandwich in between us, and I'm trying to fucking draft you, and I couldn't get past you. That was amazing. And then when you had a car in front of you, I'm like, I'll just wait next lap. I'll just wait next lap again. Yeah, Benny's got to get some ballast.